I wonder if I'm recording. I hope I'm recording. Hey, it says in the corner that I'm recording. Hey, you guys, and welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. I keep forgetting. I do so much stuff that I forget my own stuff. So, welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This is episode 4 of the new podcast that I'm doing. And in this episode, I'm going to do a little bit of 2020, a year in review. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that's happened this year, so hang tight. Welcome to the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast with your boy, Terry. We're going to do this thing. We're going to turn these knuckleheads to kings. Stay tuned. We hope you enjoy the show. All right, we're back. We're back here with this podcast. What's going on, you guys? First thing I want to do is to shout out the producer of my intro and outro, Dr. Chris Burton. Thank you, sir, for doing this particular track for me. He worked it out, and yes, I haven't paid him yet. But you know what they say. As long as you, someone owes you. As long as someone owes you, you'll never go broke, right? So yeah, that's what we're doing. So we're gonna wait. He's gonna wait for as soon as I get a chance to pay him, I'm gonna pay him. But he's an awesome producer. If you guys are down in Georgia and you want to get music and some tracks or some intros or something like that, he is the man to go look for down there in Georgia. So Chris, thank you for the intro and outro. So let's go through. We're only 6 months into the new year. Well, not 6 months, but we're kind of halfway, a little bit more than halfway. We're going into September in a couple of days, so that makes things a little, it makes it a little bit easier, right, to think about, because we're trying to get to 2021 because we're so over 2020, right? So over it. I'm one of those people. I'm over 2020. I can't even stand it. There's been so much stuff. So let's go back here to January of 2020. We've had so much stuff happening. Coronavirus is, of course, one of those big things. But let's start with the coronavirus. No, actually, let's start with the losing, or us losing a great NBA legend, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant passed away in February, I think it was. I'm trying to pull up some information while we're doing all that, but I think it was in February when we lost Kobe and his daughter Gianna and 7 other folks on a helicopter crash in LA, which was the saddest, for the folks in sports and for the folks that love the Lakers and love Kobe. He was an icon, and it was amazing, just an amazing player. He played 20 years in the NBA, all with the Lakers, which is amazing. Who does that? So not one player, even Michael Jordan, who's the GOAT, have went through and played with different teams. After the Bulls he went to the Wizards, and then he did other things. But so we're going to go back. Like I said, let's go back to January of this year. I'm going through CNN.com just to kind of get a recap. This is when the coronavirus was in full swing over in Wuhan, China. And so that's where it started, and so that's why President Trump keeps calling it the Wuhan virus, even though it's called COVID or coronavirus or what have you. We started out with 6 candidates for the Democratic nomination. We ended up with one, of course. We all know it's Joe Biden, but it was 6. And so debates were heavy back in the beginning of the year. We were able to gather, go to the beach. We were able to go to church. We were able to go to school, back in January. There was some chief justices that were sworn. John Roberts was sworn in January. Yeah, the impeachment trial started back in January. The Wuhan virus started in January. So there's a lot of stuff going on in January. It kind of gave us the cap to the beginning of this year, and you had no idea that it was going to get like this. And we are in August, and we're still struggling, right? So yeah, February. Actually, there was. Let's see. Hold up, I'm looking at this wrong here. Okay, yeah. So in February, we lose Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna. President Trump gives the State of the Union speech. This is the infamous State of the Union speech where Nancy Pelosi ripped up the speech after he gave it and gave him a sarcastic clap. So if you are familiar with that, remember I'm looking right at a nice picture of it in 1080p, which is great. Where she tore up the speech. He went through 3 articles of impeachment. If you guys remember that, he was being impeached in January or the beginning of the year. He was found guilty of 2 articles and acquitted on the 3rd. And he's still sitting up in the office. Of course, he's not going anywhere. So the stuff begins, and people always got something to say. We lose Kobe in February. I'm looking at a picture of his wife right now at his funeral, which was amazing. If you guys got to see that, continue to rest in power, King, you and Gianna, man. That was such a tragic loss, and the other 7 lives that were lost in that helicopter crash, man. We miss you. I'm sure. Vanessa, and his birthday was just the other day, and she did a moving tribute on Instagram, I think it was, for him. So thank you, Kobe, for 20 years. So we're talking about the coronavirus. So that as we're going through, let's go back. Let me scroll back to February here. January, because it's giving me a rolling count of coronavirus cases and all of that. So let's do this. January of 2020, because the coronavirus was still in Wuhan, China. I don't think it had hit our borders yet. I'm take a look at some numbers here. Hold on one second. So in January, we had 7 cases of coronavirus in the U.S. It was 9,900 cases worldwide. This is in January of 2020. Okay, and then we scroll through to February. Sorry, February had. I'm gonna scroll through. I'm sorry, y'all. February. Come on. February came 24 coronavirus cases in the U.S., 85,967 cases worldwide in February of 2020. Okay, so I'm going to give those counts as I go through the months here. Again, I've gotten to I think I'm in March, to where we've lost Kobe. They're doing his funeral, and so at this point, President Trump is just, anytime he has a press conference, he's showing kind of his racist side by, calling it the China virus, calling it the Wuhan virus, and all that. So we get into March, we're at 188,724 corona cases in the U.S. thus far in March. That's in the U.S., 858,000 cases worldwide. But that's when apparently all hell broke loose, according to CNN. The pandemic is almost in full swing here. The World Health Organization is in full swing. They're calling for they called it the coronavirus. At first, it officially got its name in March, and it was then announced to be a pandemic in March, which is crazy. All right, and so we're here in March, and I'm reading Britain's. There was something about Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle renouncing their thrones or something, renouncing their royalty, which is stupid. If I'm royalty, I'm not renouncing jack. When I think about renouncing, I think back to Coming to America, when Prince Akeem, when he was telling the lady, his wife to be, and he said, "You want to renounce my throne? I renounce my throne." No, I'm not renouncing nothing. That's just not what I do. I'm not renouncing a thing. All right. And so we're into March. People are leaving here left and right at this point. The Pope, I'm looking at the picture of the Pope talking to the folks over there in Rome. It's a lot of stuff going on, man. The coronavirus is killing people. I mean, he's shutting stuff down. I think at this point, this is when the country got shut down. At this point in March, the Democratic race is down to Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. I'm looking at a picture of them bumping elbows at one of the national debates. That didn't go good. Spring break continued, of course, back in March and April because we were hard-headed. And we believe that young people believe that they believe they was invincible, so they went ahead with spring break. Anyway, this is on March 17th. It's crazy. I don't understand the logic of some people. If you're in the middle of a pandemic and stuff is shutting down and people are dying, I guess spring break is important to some people, but it can't be that. I mean, really? You gonna risk your life like that? So back in March, again, they're shutting down airports, they're shutting down churches, they're shutting down schools, they're doing some everything. I think the Olympics would even cancel back in Tokyo. So Dr. Fauci, one of the outspoken members of the CDC, so basically the smartest man on the planet, he is starting to talk about the coronavirus on a daily basis. I think in this portion of the pandemic, they were really throwing the death numbers out there, really putting the fear in folks. I remember back in March when my job decided to stay open during the pandemic because, I mean, even though the car business for me kind of died off, people were still buying cars, people weren't afraid. But I live in a state to where we're not as close and closed in. It's like L.A., Texas, Illinois, places like that. We're not that close together like that. So at this point in March, we're starting Zoom. I think this is when Elgato won all their money because people started doing stuff from their house. People start being declared essential and non-essential, and businesses start to close. It was just really crazy. At that time, social distancing is really, really crazy, man. People are doing stuff virtually. By March, by the time April hits, there's a Navy ship and it's coming to California. The folks on that ship had coronavirus. I think it was called the USNS Comfort, and it still has to take, and it was brought in to take pressure off the hospitals over there in California. Apparently. That didn't go good. Now we're entering into April. We are at 1.70. We're at 1,072,667 cases of coronavirus in the U.S. 3,261,450 cases worldwide. Excuse me, y'all. I mean, do that. And so April. People start wearing face shields, ventilators, N95 masks. People are not going into business for themselves with the coronavirus, this pandemic. Babies are. I mean, I'm looking at some of these pictures on CNN. If you want to scroll through and do what I'm doing or see what I'm seeing, you can go to CNN.com and you can do a year in review, 2020, and you'll be able to see. What I am seeing, racial tensions get really high at this point. We're in April. This is roundabout when Ahmaud Arbery was shot down in Georgia. So we're already practicing social distancing at this point. President Trump is, a lot of people are fighting the whole mask thing, and we should be wearing masks. And that's when that started. A lot of our frontline folks. I'm looking at a picture right now where there are a bunch of officials in the hospital. Everybody got on the mask except Mike Pence, which is crazy to me. It's just amazing. Some people are great. So this is when, I think back in April 2, this is when Michigan, the folks in Michigan were protesting about wearing masks, which is crazy. Wear your mask, people. Wear your mask. Now, we're entering into May. This is when Ahmaud was killed in May. We got, as far as coronavirus cases, we got 1,799,122 coronavirus cases in the U.S. We are hitting 6,178,860 cases worldwide. So the number is growing exponentially in the worldwide and in the U.S. Now, this is what was funny to me when we was going through all of this stuff, is that we had not as many cases. However, we turn around and we're now the epicenter for this thing. You ever think about how crazy that is? It's crazy stuff. All right, so in May, this is in May 2020, Ahmaud Arbery was shot down and killed by a couple of neighbors in the neighborhood who followed him as he was walking from an abandoned house, and he was jogging, and they decided to shoot him. We don't know. I haven't heard a lot more about that. I know the guys were being charged with it. Even the guy that filmed it is being charged, which is good because he knew what he was doing. He knew what those guys was doing. So yeah, he should have been charged with death as well. Okay, so and then at this point, if you guys remember, not only did we have coronavirus, but then we had killer bees to come through here. There's a threat of killer bees. It was just so much stuff. It was in the middle of the year. That time of year was really, really crazy. So yeah, they were called the Asian giant hornets from Japan. Shown. I'm looking at a big old picture. They look pretty big. They look pretty good, big. But they were dubbed the murder hornets, and then it's really, really crazy. So a lot of people have been outraged with the Ahmaud Arbery case down there in Brunswick, and like I said, I haven't heard a lot about that. Last I heard, all three of the folks were charged with felony murder. Like I said, even the guy that was videotaping, he was charged as well, which he should have been. So a lot of the airlines at this point in the year were shutting down. There was some folks still flying, but everybody, at this point, was wearing masks. Everybody was skittish. I think it was some things that were going on as far as not being able to travel abroad at this point. But people are starting, like I said, the social media boom really took off at this point because everybody is now sheltered in place at this point. So we're quarantined from school. We're quarantined from everywhere else. You couldn't go to church for 2 or 3 months. It was really, really crazy. So we're learning how to cope. People are learning how to cope at this point in the year. And they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, me personally, I have kids who had to struggle. They got cabin fever really early in the game, and it was really crazy for us. But a lot of people have, they flocked to apps like TikTok and started live streaming and doing, so people like Elgato and all the other people, they got a lot of money because people started buying equipment to do this stuff at home because they were sheltered in place. So, I'm proud of the fact that we were able to get in social media, this year. But there are some of us who've been in the social media game for 4, 5, 6 years already, and so we were kind of prepared for it. So it's crazy. One of the people that came up to be big this time of the year was Anthony Cuomo, the governor of New York, who was just a staple. He was just the man. Everybody loved Anthony Cuomo. It was like he should have ran for president and all that. And I'm like, maybe he should have, because Anthony Cuomo is the man. He said it like it is, and people didn't like it. People didn't like it at all. It was crazy. All right, so we're still social distancing. This is in May. We're hugging through plastic, and it's a lot of stuff, man. I mean, and we can recall it and go back in our brains and stuff, and it was just a hard way to be. And I think there was a few folks who lost during this time, we lost a couple of senators. I know we lost Elijah Cummings. I know we lost. I can't think right now. You know, a lot of protests breaking out about the Ahmaud Arbery thing, and then we get, I think in May, this is when George Floyd happened up in Minnesota. So it's been really, 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 really nuts as far as all this, the outrage that's going on. Black Lives Matter really kicked off at this point in the game. So this is George Floyd is in May. BLM protests started. You got BLM supporters. You have BLM non-supporters. You have Antifa. You got so much stuff, and everybody has something to say. Now, me personally, as a black man, I do not condone looting and rioting. I don't, because it doesn't. It's not. You're not making a statement by looting and rioting. The only thing that you're doing by looting and rioting is you're concreting or confirming what their idea about you is, anyways. So don't looting and rioting, and then you're looting and rioting in your own neighborhoods. There's no point in doing that. You know, that's, you know, make your point. You know, I'm a firm believer in BLM because I believe my Black Lives Matter. My skin color isn't or shouldn't be a death sentence. But you know, some of us are taking it. Some BLM supporters are taking it the other way, and we're getting out of the peaceful protest side of it, and we're starting to criminalize all of this, and I don't think that's cool. All right, so we're in June. We're at 2,635,603 coronavirus cases in the U.S. So if you see the numbers, they've jumped up by 1 million. 10,476,012 cases worldwide of coronavirus entering into June. So we're still sparked by the George Floyd death in June. It's just really crazy. I mean, I think, and I just don't understand people. You know, you're mad because we're quiet. You're mad because we protest. Yeah, I mean, you're just mad if we speak. I mean, we share this space. We share this thing called Earth and life. It's damn it, with being black. Sometimes it feels like damn if you do, damn if you don't. You know, people are still going to not want you to say anything or not want you to talk because you're black, which is crazy to me. Get over yourself, Becky. Or, I'm sorry, not Becky, Karen, get over yourself. So riots are in full swing in June. And this is when President Trump takes this infamous picture with the Bible in front of St. John's Church. The Bible was upside down. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on right there. All right, and so also in June, we're also now mourning the death of Breonna Taylor. See the pattern here, you guys? See the pattern? Okay. Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. In consecutive months. Think about it. All right? Breonna Taylor, if you don't know, if you lived up under a rock and don't know who that is, Breonna Taylor was a Louisville, Kentucky paramedic who was in her home sleeping. And the SWAT team decided to serve a no-knock warrant at her house. But in her house, started shooting, killing her in her sleep. You know, that's murder. I don't care what nobody says. You know, the complaint is if you don't abide by the police, you get shot and killed. Okay, all right, I get it. I get that argument. I really do. But Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her bed, and they killed her. The boyfriend shot back, killed one of the officers that was there. Then they went to arrest the boyfriend. So a lot of people, and to this day, here in August, you still hear people say, or they'll still put up a meme or something and say, you know, yada yada yada. No matter what you're going, no matter what you're doing right now, think about this. They still haven't arrested the murderers of Breonna Taylor, and they still haven't. And it's August. This happened in May. It's August. And they still haven't arrested the murderers of Breonna Taylor. So again, BLM protests, rioting, looting, is sparked up. We're starting up. George Floyd's funeral was in June, so a lot of stuff going on. He had a beautiful gold casket. If you guys are familiar with that, had a beautiful gold casket. Had some great speakers. Social distancing, and it's just crazy. What I love most about this time of the year was that they were painting Black Lives Matter on streets. They had Black Lives Matter painted on the street heading up in D.C. heading to the White House, which was great because we all know that President Trump hates black people, right? So they painted Black Lives Matters almost on the point. All right. Also in June, if you guys can recall, let's take it back a little bit. If you guys recall a little bit, they started taking down Confederate statues, which created a major uproar to people because they felt like why we take down Confederate statues? They're part of history and this and that. Okay, and in a way I could see why they would like them to be taken down. But my stance is like this. You know, if they need to come down, they need to come down. In my hometown back in Wadesboro, North Carolina, we had a Confederate soldier in front of our courthouse. Had been there before I was born, right? That statue came down so fast, it wasn't even funny. So a lot of people were upset. I think later on in June, they took down the Confederate flag off Capitol buildings. That really enraged some folks, especially when NASCAR stuff. And it didn't get really nuts until NASCAR decided to take the Confederate flags off of NASCAR. So it was really, really crazy. So they started ditching Confederate statues, taking them down, knocking them down, and all of that. So it was really, 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 really crazy back in June. So this is, again, here in June, this is when if I could take you back a little bit, this is when the senators, the Democratic lawmakers, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all those guys, took that infamous picture of them kneeling on the Senate floor, paying tribute to George Floyd. This is in June 8th, and they knelt there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's how long the cop was on George Floyd's neck. 8 minutes 46 seconds. I look at this picture still, and I think about it, and I go, I think they were doing a little bit much with it. I think the kneeling was good. The kente cloth was a little bit far. If you guys remember that picture, the infamous picture, they all had on kente cloth. It was a bit much for me. Way much for me. Way much. All right. So, again, we're getting ready for the election, and we start talking about that. Spring break is in full swing at this point. There are a lot of kids out and about. And then there was another shooting and a death in Georgia of Rayshard Brooks. We forgot all about him. Rayshard Brooks was shot by cops at where was he? He was in this is on June 12th. I mean, it's just crazy. The names just keep coming, right? When you think about it. So on June 12th, Rayshard Brooks was shot because he was sleeping in his car. The cops told him to move. He complied, and then he got shot in the back as well. This is on June 27th. Rayshard Brooks, and then they burnt down the Wendy's down there in Georgia. A lot of people were mad about that because they couldn't get their 444s anymore. So a lot of stuff is going on, man. A lot of stuff is going on at this point. Again, BLM is still going on strong. That toupee is something terrible. He is okay. So in this date, what day is this? I want to read this right. President Trump, listen to it. He got applauded for something, signing an executive order on police reform. This is June 16th at the in the White House Rose Garden. Trump said he was taking executive action to encourage police to adopt the highest and the strongest professional standards to deliver a future of safety and security for Americans of every race, religion, color, or creed. His order, among other steps, created a federal database of police officers with a history of using excessive force. Really, I did that. I don't even remember him doing that. That was June 16th. And so it is time for, he's having Trump rallies. He had a Trump rally in Tulsa on June 20th. He had expected a great number of people to come out to this rally in Oklahoma. It turned out that it was not even a quarter of what he wanted. So it was dubbed a disaster from his people. And so, but this is when he was disappointed. It was a picture of him. He was very disappointed. He was very disappointed. Oh, this picture is everything. Oh my goodness, I didn't notice. You guys, I'm telling you, go CNN.com and just put in year in review. And you scroll down to this picture. He is so disappointed at the fact that he didn't have all those people. So I'm looking at the picture now. I'm scrolling through, looking at a picture of Tamika Miller, who was the wife of Rayshard Brooks, at his funeral. It's just so sad, man. It's so sad. So again, we're going through the coronavirus. I hate to keep. I know I keep jumping back and forth, but I'm actually reading through the year in review. So it's a lot of back and forth going on because it goes from death of a black man, coronavirus. Death of a black woman, coronavirus. So it kind of goes back and forth. Sorry about that. If you guys are kind of confused with what I'm doing here. So the beaches down in Florida, of course, Florida becomes the epicenter because everybody loves Florida beaches. They didn't stay in the house. They must be quarantined. They must be sheltered in place. But everybody at the beach at this point in time. Let's see. We are in June 28th. Excuse me. June 28th should be familiar. Maybe it's not, but if it's not, I will refresh your memory. June 28th was a BLM protesters that walked through a neighborhood up in, looks like Michigan. I think it's in Michigan. Was it Michigan? I think it was Michigan. No, it was in St. Louis, sorry. And so this is when the crazy couple had pulled guns on BLM protesters on their front lawn. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? If you don't remember that, go back, take a look. They drew guns on the people on June 28th after coming in through a gated community. A lot of people was upset about that because they're in a gated community. And so part of me agrees with that. A part of me not. I mean, because they were looking for, they weren't even going to their house. They were going to someone else's house in the neighborhood. But they pulled these guns out because they felt like they could, which is crazy. Of course, again, like I mentioned earlier, the flags came down in June. The Confederate flags came down across state capitol buildings in June. So that's as far as CNN gives me. So now I'm gonna give you what has happened since July. You guys are familiar with everything that's happened. We got the death of Jacob Blake recently, who was shot in the back 7 times on last Sunday, who was then arrested because he had federal warrants, handcuffed to his bed, but he was shot 7 times in the back. How one person survives being shot in the back 7 times is still beyond me, but he's alive, not without consequence. He is currently paralyzed from the waist down. They say that it will be a miracle for this young man to walk ever again. So, that's what it is. So these officers were charged with his attempted murder. That's basically what it was. It was attempted murder. So the story stemming from that is Cal Rittenhouse, who decided to come from Antioch, Illinois, 26 miles from Antioch to Kenosha, Wisconsin, to go to a BLM rally. Decided to shoot up 3 people at this, walked past the cops with an AR-15 strapped to his shoulder, and they gave him water. Now you look at the white privilege when you think about this, right? You have a man who's shot in the back 7 times for them thinking that he may or may not have a weapon. They said that Jacob was carrying had brandished a weapon, but he was getting into his car. He wasn't even where his children are. And even if he had a knife or thinking about getting a knife, you have enough space to say, you know what? No, I'm gonna back up from this guy, and tase him or do whatever you have to do. But he didn't brandish any weapons, none of that, right? And he's still shot in the back 7 times. But yet, this young man could walk through the streets of Kenosha with an AR-15, and then not only did he shoot 3 people and kill 2, he was able to go back home and get back in his bed and sleep. They arrested him the next morning, but he still was able to go home after shooting these people. Come on, if that's not white privilege, I don't know what is. I'm also a firm believer that the mother should be charged as well. I believe this because she aided and abetted. She put him in the car. She knew he had an AR-15. She knew she knew what he was going to do. She drove him across state lines with this illegal weapon. And just like my other podcast that I'm on, the Brothers Who Talk with AD and I, we had our guest on this past week, Mr. Cicero. Is that right? Cicero. I always get his name wrong, but Cicero. And we were talking, and he was like, well, having an AR-15 isn't illegal. So let me clarify something. Him having the AR-15 wasn't illegal. It's not illegal until you take a semi-automatic weapon and make it automatic. That's when it becomes illegal. And then he was 17. The legal carry age in Illinois is 18. So for one thing, he broke the law with that. Then he took this weapon, possible mass destruction across state lines into Wisconsin, which is another felony. And then you shoot 2 people, murder them, and the other guy that he shot was, I think he lost his arm. He took a big chunk out of his arm. So, and we're talking about there's no white privilege. If you don't believe there's any white privilege, then, something is not right inside of your head. I don't know what's going on here, but come on, that's crazy. And then, last but not least, on a sad note here, and I hope that every single person that I mentioned in this podcast today, from Ahmaud Arbery to Rashard Brooks to George Floyd to Jacob Blake to Breonna Taylor, all of these folks that I mentioned, and just these 6 months that has passed, I pray that every last one of those folks get justice for what has happened to them. Because I want people to understand when they listen to this, that as black people, we don't want nor care about revenge. We just want justice, y'all. We just want justice. It's just like my guy said Thursday when we did our podcast, and he said, Antioch was put on lockdown because they were afraid that the BLM protesters was going to come back to Antioch to get Mr. Rittenhouse. But nothing happened. And nothing happened because justice was served as far as him getting arrested. Now, if he gets off and they find some kind of cockamamie thing, and I don't think Illinois has that stupid Florida rule, the stay in your ground rule. I don't think they have that. But then again, I don't know. But nonetheless, hopefully justice is served for every person that I mentioned in this podcast on today. But last but not least, I want to scream a rest in power to Chadwick Boseman, who some of you guys know him best as playing the Marvel character Black Panther. But he was more than that. He played the Black Panther. He played in 12 Years a Slave. He played in, no he didn't, that wasn't him, 12 Years a Slave. But he played Jackie Robinson. He played Thurgood Marshall. He played in The Five Bloods. He played some major historical roles in Hollywood. We lost him on Friday night, I think it was, to stage 4 colon cancer. So I want to say, to the family of Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. Rest in power, King. You touched many, many, many lives. Many lives as you lived your life. And I, for one, as a black man, am proud to have been touched by your work. You let little boys know that little black boys and little brown boys know that they can be superheroes. So I appreciate you. We appreciate you. We love you. This is a collective, not just me. This is a collective. May you rest in power. I do have something for Marvel, though. Marvel, do not replace Chadwick Boseman. Do not replace Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. Put Shuri, and have her and give her the power. That way we can show our little brown girls and our black girls that they could be superheroes too. So that's just my plea. It may not never happen, but that's just my plea. Marvel, don't replace Chadwick Boseman. Let Shuri become the new Black Panther and show little black girls that they can be superheroes too. All right, so I'm going to get out of here. Until next time, you guys be blessed. I love you here at the Knucklehead Chronicles, man. I hope you guys subscribe, download, follow us on all broadcasting platforms. This will be in video format as well on YouTube here pretty soon. Right now it's audio, so make sure you subscribe and download. I love every last one of you guys that are listening, and I appreciate you taking the time out and taking a listen. All right, but until next time, we'll see you.